Hello and welcome to this edition of News Today. Without delay, let's have a look at the headlines first. India's military diplomacy accelerates with consecutive exercises. Allow natural growth for India's EV sector to avoid India becoming an EV colony for China, says GTRI. China stopped short of providing debt relief to African countries. MHA guidelines on recovery and reconstruction funding window within NDRF and SDRF released. United Nations World Meteorological Organization released its 4th annual Air Quality and Climate Bulletin. India's first Teal carbon study undertaken at Keoladeo National Park. Let us begin with the very first news. In recent months, India's military diplomacy has gained significant momentum, with a series of consecutive exercises involving multiple nations across all three services. Military diplomacy, also known as defense diplomacy, is a key component of India's foreign policy. It involves the peaceful employment of defense resources and capabilities to pursue foreign policy objectives. This includes activities such as contributing to UN peacekeeping missions, providing humanitarian assistance in times of crisis, and conducting joint military exercises with partner nations. The significance of military diplomacy lies in its ability to build trust and confidence between nations. Regular dialogue, joint exercises, and military exchanges play a crucial role in reducing mistrust and minimizing the likelihood of conflicts. These engagements also help to strengthen alliances and partnerships, such as through defense cooperation agreements, technology transfers, and joint military drills. For instance, the Quadrilateral Security Dialogue, or Quad, is an example of how defense cooperation can contribute to regional security architectures. Military diplomacy is also essential for enhancing defense modernization and capabilities. Through technology transfers, knowledge sharing, and joint training exercises, India has been able to advance its defense systems. The joint development of the BrahMos missile with Russia is a prime example of how these collaborations can result in cutting-edge military technology. Additionally, military diplomacy contributes to strategic balancing in geopolitically sensitive regions, while humanitarian aid and peacekeeping operations enhance India's soft power. However, India's military diplomacy is not without its challenges. One major issue is balancing its strategic partnerships with global powers such as the US and Russia. While maintaining relations with both is important for India's defense strategy, it can sometimes be challenging to navigate the geopolitical tensions between these powers. Additionally, India's dominant position in South Asia has led to a big brother perception among its neighbors, which can hinder deeper military cooperation. Furthermore, capacity gaps in India's domestic defense manufacturing capabilities present limitations in terms of building self-reliant defense systems. Recent and upcoming military exercises further highlight this growing role. For instance, the Yuddha Abhyas exercise, a bilateral army drill between India and the United States, is set to take place at the Mahajan field firing ranges in Rajasthan. The multilateral air exercise Tarang Shakti, involving nations such as Australia, Greece, Sri Lanka, the UAE, Japan, Singapore, and the US, is also on the agenda. Moreover, the Malabar naval exercise, scheduled to be held off the Visakhapatnam coast in October, will bring together the Quad nations India, Australia, Japan, and the United States. Additionally, India and Russia will participate in the bilateral exercise Indra, further strengthening defense ties between the two countries. In conclusion, India's proactive military engagements through military exercises, capacity building, and peacekeeping operations demonstrate its commitment to fostering security cooperation, particularly in the Indo-Pacific region and beyond. Moving ahead, India's electric vehicle sector is at a crucial crossroads, with market forces expected to shape its future growth. A recent report by the Global Trade Research Initiative titled India's Strategy to Avoid Harm in the Global EV Market Shakeup emphasizes the need for natural, organic growth in India's EV market. It warns against the risk of India becoming an EV colony for China if careful steps are not taken. China currently dominates the global EV market, exporting 1.6 million electric vehicles worth $36.7 billion in 2023 alone. However, as Western countries like the USA, European Union, and Canada impose tariffs and other restrictions on Chinese EV imports, China is shifting its production and assembly to other regions, including ASEAN nations and India. Although this may seem beneficial on the surface, these units would still rely heavily on Chinese imports, with 70 to 80% of the parts, including essential components like batteries, coming from China. India faces several challenges in the electric vehicle space. First, there are environmental concerns. Despite EVs being touted as greener alternatives, India's reliance on fossil fuels like coal to generate electricity reduces the environmental benefits of electric vehicles. Moreover, the production of EV batteries is known for its high carbon footprint, starting right from the mining stages. Additionally, India's dependence on China for electric vehicle components is a major hurdle, with more than 80% of an electric vehicle's cost stemming from batteries and other Chinese-made parts. India runs the risk of becoming a dumping ground for China's excess EVs, especially as access to developed markets for Chinese products becomes limited. To avoid these pitfalls, GTRI offers several key recommendations. One of the foremost is investing in research and development to innovate in battery technologies, such as solid-state batteries and hydrogen fuel cells. Moreover, there is a pressing need for India to develop its own battery recycling infrastructure to ensure long-term sustainability. Additionally, the report stresses the importance of promoting clean energy sources to power electric vehicle charging stations to align with global green goals. It also calls for comprehensive lifetime assessments of EVs to ensure that the environmental impact is addressed from production to disposal.
In a prominent development, China has stopped short of providing the much-needed debt relief to African countries at the recent 9th Forum on China-Africa Cooperation. However, China did pledge $50.7 billion over the next 3 years in credit lines and investments. While this financial commitment is substantial, it falls short of addressing Africa's growing debt crisis, raising questions about China's debt trap diplomacy. This move highlights the stark differences between China's and India's approaches towards engaging with Africa. China's bilateral engagement has largely focused on natural resource extraction and large-scale infrastructure projects, some of which have been criticized as vanity projects. On the other hand, India emphasizes collaboration rooted in equality, as per the Kampala principles as highlighted by Indian Prime Minister in 2018. A prime example is India's successful move to include the African Union as a member of the G20. China has often been accused of debt trap diplomacy, with investments totaling over $143 billion between 2000 and 2017. In contrast, India provides concessional lines of credit, grants, and capacity-building programs. India's tele-education and telemedicine initiatives are prime examples of its sustainable approach to development. When it comes to capacity building, China has faced criticism for employing predominantly Chinese workers and offering low salaries to locals. In comparison, Indian companies actively hire and train African talent. Through initiatives like the Indian Technical and Economic Cooperation, which has been running since 1964, India has strengthened its focus on skill development and self-reliance in Africa. Africa remains crucial for India's economic and strategic interests, with the continent holding about 30% of the world's mineral reserves. India is now among the top 5 investors in Africa, and its presence on global forums strengthens India's vision of rule-based global governance. As China's investments model faces growing scrutiny, India's sustainable, capacity-building approach continues to foster long-term partnerships with African nations.
Ahead in the news, we are going to talk about the Ministry of Home Affairs guidelines on recovery and reconstruction funding window within NDRF and SDRF. In the year 2022, the Ministry of Home Affairs issued guidelines concerning the constitution and administration of the National Disaster Response Fund and State Disaster Response Fund. A significant aspect of these guidelines was the establishment of a Recovery and Reconstruction or RNR funding window aimed at addressing gaps in funding for states affected by natural disasters. The RNR funding was created on the recommendations of the 15th Finance Commission. The funding window has a specific purpose: to assist states in managing the financial burden of post-disaster recovery and reconstruction, especially when the required expenditure exceeds the state's financial capacity. For this, the State Disaster Management Authority serves as the nodal agency responsible for implementation. The types of calamities covered under this framework are wide-ranging and include cyclones, droughts, earthquakes, fires, floods, tsunamis, hailstorms, landslides, avalanches, cloudbursts, pest attacks, and frost and cold waves. Activities supported by the R&R funding window encompasses critical areas such as housing, education and infrastructure, all of which are essential for long-term recovery and rebuilding. The need for such an R&R funding window is particularly acute. In the absence of structured financial support for recovery and reconstruction, states often struggle to regain their development footing post-disaster. The Disaster Relief Framework, as recommended by the 15th Finance Commission, creates separate funds for disaster response and disaster mitigation. The National Disaster Risk Management Fund and the State Disaster Risk Management Fund are vital components of this structure. 80% of funds are allocated to NDRF or SDRF for response and relief, while the remaining 20% are directed toward mitigation via the national and state disaster mitigation funds. The R&R funding window itself allocates 40% of funds to immediate response and relief, 30% towards recovery and reconstruction, and 10% to preparedness and capacity building. This structured approach ensures that the state are not only better equipped to respond to disasters, but are also able to rebuild stronger and more resilient communities in the aftermath of such events.
In a concerning development, the United Nations World Meteorological Organization has released its 4th annual Air Quality and Climate Bulletin, highlighting the intricate link between air quality and climate change. The report sheds light on worrying trends and innovations that could reshape our understanding of the atmosphere. The report reveals a mixed picture on global air quality. While Europe and China have managed to lower concentrations of dangerous PM 2.5 pollutants, regions like North America and India are grappling with rising emissions, largely due to human activities. For those unfamiliar, PM 2.5 refers to particulate matter smaller than 2.5 micrometers, tiny particles that pose significant health risks as they can penetrate deep into the lungs. Hotspots for PM 2.5 emissions were noted in agricultural regions across Central Africa, Pakistan, India, China, and Southeast Asia. As per the WMO, crop yields could drop by up to 15% due to the reduced sunlight reaching plant leaves, directly impacted by these airborne particles. But it's not all grim news. There is hope on the horizon with advancement in aerobiology, where new technologies have enabled real-time bioaerosol monitoring. Now let's see what is aerobiology. It is a study of the movement and impact of airborne biological particles or bioaerosols on human, animal, and plant health. Bioaerosols include bacteria, fungal spores, pollen grains, viruses, etc. Bioaerosols reflect changes in biodiversity, plant flowering patterns, and distribution, all sensitive to climate shifts. Hence, new technologies are needed to improve understanding of bioaerosols, which would further enhance forecasting and climate change impact assessment. Thanks to new technologies like high-resolution image analysis, holography, multi-band scatterometry, fluorescein spectrometry, and nanotechnology for DNA sequencing, we are better equipped to assess the impacts of these microscopic travelers. These innovations could dramatically improve our ability to predict changes in biodiversity and even plant flowering patterns under shifting climates. In a groundbreaking step towards climate action, India has completed its first ever Teal carbon study at the Keoladeo National Park or KNP in Rajasthan. This innovative research sheds new light on the untapped potential of freshwater wetlands in combating climate change, provided we manage to control human-induced pollution in these sensitive ecosystems. Study also reveals elevated methane emissions can be reduced by use of a specialized type of biochar, which is a form of charcoal. But what exactly is teal carbon? Unlike the more commonly known black and brown carbon, which are byproducts of incomplete combustion and contribute to global warming, teal carbon refers to carbon stored in non-tidal freshwater wetlands. It encompasses the carbon locked in vegetation, microbial biomass, and organic matter found in water bodies. These wetlands, like those at Keoladeo, are crucial for carbon sequestration and can play a vital role in mitigating the effects of climate change. Teal carbon, being a color-based terminology, reflects the classification of the organic carbon based on its functions and location rather than its physical properties. Teal carbon offers more than just climate benefits. It helps increase groundwater levels, aids in flood mitigation, and even reduces heat islands, making it a vital tool for sustainable urban adaptation. Wrapping up, declared as a national park in 1982, Keoladeo was included as a UNESCO World Heritage Site in 1985. It is home to over 370 species of birds and wildlife, including the majestic Siberian crane. However, the park has faced challenges, being placed on the Montreux record in 1990 due to water shortages and overgrazing. But with this new teal carbon study, KNP could become a beacon of hope for both biodiversity and climate mitigation. In our personality news for today, eminent freedom fighter Sarat Chandra Bose was remembered on his 135th birth anniversary on September 6th. Born in Cuttack, Odisha, he was an influential member of the Indian National Congress and the Bengal Legislative Council. He was also elected as an alderman multiple times in the Calcutta Corporation. A staunch patriot, he left his legal practice to join the civil disobedience movement in 1930, which led to his arrest and a 3-year imprisonment in 1932. He played a pivotal role in the Forward Bloc, a socialist party founded by his brother Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose. He fiercely opposed the partition of Bengal and Punjab along religious lines, resigning from the Congress Working Committee in protest in 1947. He also contributed to the nationalist movement through his writings, publishing newspapers like the Socialist Republican, Mahajati, and The Nation. He displayed values of courage of conviction, patriotism, etc.
As we conclude today's main news, let's have a look at some quick updates. Bank certificates of deposit issuance increased nearly 3 times in financial year 24 as compared to financial year 22. Certificates of deposits are negotiable unsecured money market instrument issued by a bank as a promissory note against funds deposited with it for a maturity period up to 1 year. Swachh Vayu Sarvekshan Awards were presented to Surat, Jabalpur and Agra Category 1, Firozabad, Amravati and Jhansi Category 2, Rai Bareli, Nalgonda and Nalagarh Category 3. Swachh Vayu Sarvekshan Awards is an initiative of the Environment Ministry ranking cities on the implementation of activities approved under City Action Plan and air quality in 130 National Clean Air Program cities. Water spinach now reached the door of the farmers with the technology developed by the Indian Institute of Vegetable Research. Water spinach is native to tropics and subtropics. This semi-aquatic perennial plant is believed to have been the first domesticated in Southeast Asia. Recently, more than 100 cases of malnourished children among Saharia tribe have been reported from Bara district of Rajasthan. Saharias are one of the PVTGs that are mostly inhabited in Madhya Pradesh, Uttar Pradesh and Rajasthan. 2 NASA astronauts remain on the International Space Station due to a faulty propulsion system. It includes helium leaks which also affected past missions like ISRO's Chandrayaan-2. Helium is an element in group 18 of noble gases of the periodic table. Bepi Colombo has completed its first latest flyby of Mercury. It will begin to orbit in 2026. Bepi Colombo was launched in 2018. It is a joint European-Japanese mission consisting of 2 spacecraft riding together to Mercury to orbit and to study the planet. India's first silicon carbide manufacturing facility to be set up in Odisha. It is also known as carborundum. Silicon carbide is an exceedingly hard, synthetically produced crystalline compound of silicon and carbon. Redevelopment of Nilgiri mountain railway stations under Amrit Bharat station scheme threatens its historical and architectural value. Nilgiri mountain railway was first proposed in 1854 and completed in 1908. It is a 46 km long meter gauge single track railway in Tamil Nadu. Before we sign off, let's challenge your understanding in today's installment of Test Your Knowledge. Thank you for joining us. We hope you found this episode of News Today engaging. For the solution to the quiz and to access the PDF version of News Today, remember to visit the provided links in the description below.